A very good morning to everyone. You are most welcome to this session of today, Tuesday, as usual. This is Dr. Mhumuza Benon from Makerere University Business School. We are very much honored and privileged to have you, to have everyone on this call this morning, as usual. We are trying to continue with our understanding of business resilience. And today, we have a very special guest who I think most of the people could be aware of, but later we'll really introduce him to you. But before that, let's have an opening prayer from our chaplain, Alan, so that we can proceed with our agenda today. Over to you, Reverend.
Thank you, Dr. Benon. Good morning, everyone. Shall we pray together? Our God and Father, we thank you for this morning. Thank you for giving us another chance to meet as a community of MUBS. We are coming to deliberate together on the ideas on how we can stand in this world that you gave us, on how we can survive. And as now, God, as we are discussing the ideas about business, on how we can be sustained in this universe, God, I pray that may you brand us with your word. And this morning, our hearts, as they are welcoming your word about business, we shall also welcome your word to dwell in our hearts, and we shall be identified as your children. That when some of us are identified as business people and good, and we are being promoted from one level to another, we are also blended in your kingdom, that you shall speak to us. We thank you for the management. We thank you for the host and everyone that has managed to be on this platform. May you speak to us this morning. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Reverend, for that opening prayer. May God really bless you much. As always, you have always really done it for us. This morning, ladies and gentlemen, our guest, I will introduce him at a later time in a few minutes to come. Allow me at this time to recognize our dear director, Mbarara MUBS campus, Professor Kisimire as well, Richard, Dr. Komunda. I can see the people I'm seeing on call, Dr. Nkote, our heads of departments, Dr. Mutebi, Viola Mpangwile, the head of marketing and management, and Dr. Engineer Tumwesije on call. You are most welcome. Thank you for joining us where I could be now. And we have a number of people that are online that I'll keep on really introducing to you as we go along. Ladies and gentlemen, at this particular time, allow me to first briefly request Professor Kisimire to give us a background of Mbarara Regional Campus as one of the area starters of this particular campus who really participated in its initial stages when it was being established at Mbarara or in Mbarara district. Over to you, Professor Kisimire. Briefly, give us a background of Mbarara Regional Campus.
Thank you, Dr. Benon, and good morning, everyone on call. I have been asked to talk about a brief background of MUBS Mbarara Regional Campus. And maybe in the interest of time, I will have to talk about the background of as a whole for those who are on call and not know the detail. Now, MUBS was formed as a merger of the Faculty of Commerce of Makerere University and the National College of Business Studies. That was way back in 1997. And then we, as management, along the way, in 2006, management, with the help of council and guidance of council, took up a decision to open up up-country campuses, and these were Arua, Jinja, and later Mbale campus. The main reason was to get services closer to the people, and secondly was to decongest the main campus. At the same time, to ensure that the services of Makerere University, the mandate that government gave our institution, be gotten to the entire country, Uganda. Now, for the Mbarara Regional Campus, we started in 2006, unlike the other campuses. That was around November. So we started with a few students. There were 61 students, and by the time they came in, we were only 6 permanent or resident teaching assistants and 2 administrators. As I talk now, we have evolved over time, and I can proudly say that we have over 1,000 students. We have over 75 academic staff and over 15 administrative staff, and of course the support staff as well. We started with only 4 programs. That was only the 4 bachelor's programs and 1 diploma program. But as I talk now, bachelor's programs, we have 2 diploma programs, we have 2 certificate programs, and 2 master's programs. We are also enabling our staff to pursue their PhD programs, and we are hopeful and optimistic that with time, we are going to start off the PhD programs to run them permanently here at the campus, because we now have capacity. We have so far secured land given to us by the district officials, where we intend to build our own campus, because apparently we are in rented premises of the district local government offices. And once we construct our own campus, we shall have got home. So this is meant to confirm to our stakeholders, to the listeners, people who are on call here, that we are here to serve the campus, and we are here to pursue the mandate that government gave us of bringing these services closer to people and teaching business-related programs to the regional campus, sorry, to the region or to the Western region. I wouldn't want to waste a lot of time, so to be on as host, I thank you so much for giving me the opportunity, and I welcome everyone who is listening in. Thank you, and I wish you nice deliberations.
Thank you so much, Professor Kisimire. This is really also a notion to understand Mbarara Regional Campus. I would like at this moment, first of all, again, to recognize the presence of our dear principal, Professor Waso Barunya, on call. As usual, he has always been with us, our mentor, the brain behind each and everything that is going on around the country and the region as well in the business setup. As we strive to understand business resilience, he is also the brain behind those concepts and actually the wind of the business area. Can I this time also maybe take this opportunity to, before I invite our keynote speaker, I would like first of all to introduce to you our guest tonight, who is really on call with us, Mr. Simon Kasyate, to actually enlighten the listeners. Who is this Simon Kasyate? For the first time, I think, on call with us, though he's been participating in different forums, and we are very also privileged and honored to have him here, because I think it is really a blessing from God. That's Kasyate Simon. This one is a seasoned communications and public relations practitioner in the country, and he holds a Bachelor of Science of Social Sciences from Makerere University, and a Master of Art in International Relations and Diplomacy from the university from Makerere University as well. And as per now, is also is pursuing a master's degree in business administration from Makerere University Business School. And you can see briefly, he's part of us always. And we are very honored and privileged, sincerely, to have him on this call this morning. He will be sharing with us in a few minutes as we give him the floor. And at the same time, over 22 years, Simon Kasyate has been holding different positions in this country, and as well as in non-government organizations. Somewhere, the most recent, he was being the country lead program communications of MasterCard Foundation Uganda. And prior to that, Simon was also a communications and public relations officer in the Uganda Electricity Generation Company Limited, and also corporate affairs manager. And generally speaking, he has it all. He's been on the scene. Therefore, in sharing with us this morning, he'll be really giving us the practical experience to really guide us in as far as the business resilience is concerned, with his topic tonight, which you have seen, personal branding, or the role of personal branding in business sustainability, which is a landmark actually if the businesses are to grow and to adapt to different disruptions that are posed by different challenges of the environment. May I at this time, first of all, invite our director briefly to use a few minutes to actually welcome for us our keynote speaker, who is Professor Waswa Barunywa, to give us a roadmap or the theoretical framework of the personal branding, so that we can move forward to receive our guest tonight. Over to you, Director.
Thank you, Benon. Thank you, everyone, for attending our early morning discussions. We encourage you to join us with your names. Please make sure that you join us or you log in with all your names, so that we do not have phones that we are talking to. We need to recognize who we are discussing with. The technical team, thank you so much for arranging all this. And Dr. Benon, thank you for mobilizing. Thank you for organizing, Simon and the rest. We bother you to join us early in the morning, because we always want to discuss pertinent issues, especially related to business, so that we can be on the same page and tell you what we do and share with the community, so that we show to you that we are relevant to you, especially in the Western region and the rest of Uganda. So it is good. It is always good that when we call upon you, you join us, so that we can be able to progress in business issues. I don't want to waste a lot of time. Let me, at this juncture, welcome our principal, Professor Waswa Barunywa, to give us the theoretical framework of the topic today, and perhaps maybe call upon our guest Simon to present what he has. Thank you so much for listening to me, and Principal Professor Waswa Barunywa, please, you are welcome.
Thank you very much, our director, and I want to pay tribute to the campus, our host, and the rest of the staff in Mbarara. Thank you for that persistence that you about business resilience. You are now becoming resilient through these programs. Thank you so much. I want to tell you a story. Many years back, I was part of the effort to bring back Coca-Cola into this country. I was a project manager, and I was in the company for some time. I went onto the board, and among the things we were trying to do was to, in terms of competition, to fix Pepsi, because Pepsi Cola never left the country. So we did a lot of work, and the vice president Coca-Cola came to Uganda and told me, young man, why don't you join us? I was promised a good job, you go for some training, and then you're looking at $10,000 a month plus all the perks. And I said, I'll think about it. He couldn't believe it. And So he came back and told me, you know, if there was a United Nations of companies, Coca-Cola would have a permanent seat. Now, what did that mean? The Coca-Cola brand is so strong that if there was an association where you have companies to come together, Coca-Cola would have a like the UN, the Coca-Cola would have a permanent seat. So today, what are those brands that we see and recognize? Of course, Coca-Cola continues to be one of them, despite the fact that it's got a very simple solution, which is only known by 7 people, by the way. And Coca-Cola, we have Apple, you know, your iPhone, wonderful brand, Toyota, wonderful brand, Samsung, wonderful brand, the Nike, wonderful brand. And when you come into educational institutions in this country, MUBS, wonderful brand, Makerere, wonderful brand. I don't know how many others there. But what does that mean? That is the reputation that one has. That's the basis of somebody being able to say, I want this product and this is what I want it for. That's why we continue to say, I'm going to share when you're going to, maybe Starbucks or something else. It became a generic name. You want to brush your teeth and you say Colgate. When you may be using Pepsodent or something else. Excuse me. So branding is extremely important in creating value and creating resilience. And that brand it could be a mark, it could be a name, it could be a phrase that somebody builds over time by what he or she delivers. A company builds over time by what they promise to deliver and actually deliver. So a personal brand is an identity, maybe for a company or for the individual, but it's an identity. Like you say, MUBS is a personal brand, it's a strong brand, and because what is the reputation of the company? It is the value that people know about it, that okay, when I go to MUBS, I'll get good value. Yesterday, I was talking to some students who said, out there, the MUBS tends to be known as the girls in MUBS tend to be known as slay girls. But he said, once you get into MUBS, you understand that that's not the case, that they have to work hard, that they are smart people, But many people think because they are seeing so many girls out there getting into the institution that possibly they don't study, but they realize that when you get in there, it's serious business. So a personal brand is what identifies you. It is the reputation that you bring, you have built over time. It is why people come back to you. It's why the customers will come back to buy your products again and again. And it's why you may even actually charge a high value for something just because that is what people feel about you. So I want to welcome Simon, who will give us some of the practical elements of personal branding. And I believe that right now we still remember Mrwana for what he was, Wavumuno for what he was, the Mukwanos, what they are. That's a brand that they've built out in the market, the reputation that they have. And building it is not easy, but losing it is very, very, very easy. So I hope that we can learn on this to be able to see how we can become more resilient in the things that we do. Thank you very much. And Simon, thank you for agreeing to be with us this morning, and welcome to this session.
Thank you so much, Prof. I think our guest you have already been ushered in by Principal Professor Barunywa. Over to you, please. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Doctor, and thank you very much, Professor Wasoloinya, the Principal of Makerere University Business School. By way of introduction, you have made a very generous introduction of myself, but I think with the humility that this forum deserves is to indicate that I'm not coming from Mars and coming to impose some strange theories or practical experiences. I am just a student of Makerere University Business School,
And I'm sure for Professor Barunywa, he must be getting tired of me saying I'm a student of Makerere University Business School now over 2 years. Thanks to COVID, I should have graduated, but because of the disruptions in our calendar, I hope that by this time next year, I will be a former student as opposed to always introducing myself as a student. The issue of personal branding is very dear to me. And from the example that Professor Waswa Barunywa did indicate of Coca-Cola, I must at this point in time also indicate some kind of, should I call it conflict of interest, but maybe some insight about the Coca-Cola company that I am closely associated with it in the following areas. My dear wife happens to be the director for public affairs, communication, and sustainability with Coca-Cola International, domiciled in Nairobi and running the gig in over 12 African countries in East and Central Africa. So I know something about Coca-Cola. But also importantly, when Professor Barunywa, if he attends my Viva, he will realize that my topic of research is also around the Coca-Cola company. And I think it's because I've picked interest in that brand and I've followed it over the years. Interestingly, when you talk about personal branding, that company does come in very succinctly, in the sense that you can tell a Coca-Cola logo from wherever it is that you see it, in whatever dialect it is written, because it has an interesting calligraphy feel to it. But even more to that is that they deliberately chose, as a company, to say we will bring a bottle of Coca-Cola within arm's reach to everybody in the world. But not just bring it to arm's reach, but we'll make a Coca-Cola bottle, or we'll make a bottle that will be recognized even by a blind man. So if you touch a Coca-Cola bottle with your eyes closed, it feels the same way as it has over the years, to the extent that they were deliberate in designing that shape to be able to be felt and known by even a blind man, because it's distinct in its feel, it's distinct in its shape. And Professor Barunywa just talked about his 3 girls of MUBS. If we were to describe them using another way, we would say their bodies are shaped like a Coca-Cola bottle. That's exactly what we call personal branding. Branding of an item, branding of an individual. I don't know what picture appears on my screen over to you who are listening to me, but I know for the most part, many of you, when you hear my name, at least in the recent past, you will imagine I am wearing a bow tie. That was deliberate. When I had my other lease of life coming back to TV, where I cut my teeth in my journalistic practice, I asked myself, after over 10 years of being off the screen as a news anchor, now I am returning as a talk show host. How different should I be so that I am able to stand out of the crowd and make meaning to people that are watching me? And I say it from experience that more than half the people that listen to you at an event or an occasion or through a talk may never remember what you said. But what's for sure is that everyone will remember how you looked or how you said what you said. So most times, however intelligent you are, people are not so much interested in the intelligence of what you are presenting before them. For the most part, people are interested or will remember how you look like. Hence the adage that goes, you are addressed the way you are dressed. If I may repeat that, you are addressed the way you are dressed. And let me bring it down to the local context. If you went to an event or a party in Nyamito, which is near Mbara, at your campus, for example, and you, for example, did not show up there, you know you are not invited, but you know about the event and you want to be a part of the event. The best way to be in the event and possibly even take up a prime sitting location is to dress and look the part. So whenever you intend to fluke an event, the worst injustice you can make to yourself is not to dress the part. So you have to dress and look like, perhaps even overdress and outshine the invited guests. And when you arrive at the gate, those checking for invitation cards may not even so much as ask you for your invitation card. They will look at how you are dressed, the way you carry yourself, and indeed, we usher you to a table meant for more distinguished people who are invited, and they will sit you there. Conversely, even if you are invited and your name is plastered on billboards that you'll be a guest, but you show up underdressed in a clumsy manner, perhaps in a car not befitting your status, believe you me, you'll be subjected to a lot of checks. And in fact, people will even have the face of doubt over them, wondering whether this is Professor Baruyma that we invited, yet he has showed up in a wish, yet we expected him to show up in at least a Toyota Prado, distinguished, complete with the auras of being a principal of a huge national institution such as MUBS. So yes, when you dress appropriately, when you present yourself appropriately, you are invited to the party. And this is not something that's a new phenomenon. You, the Wanyankore, for example, have an adage, and I'll try to put it in English, that when a young person, a child, has their hands washed prior, they stand a chance of eating from the high table, something like that. I'm sure Professor Dr. Muhumuza can translate that at a later point. But it is an adage that is ingrained in your old sayings that when a young person or a child has their hands washed, then there is a high likelihood that they will eat from the high table with the elders. What does that mean? It means that they have distinguished themselves from the masses, they have stood up out of the crowd, and they have branded themselves as ready and befitting to be at the high table. So in whatever we do as individuals, in whatever we try to do as businesses, you want to stand out and be recognized for having that something about you that is different from all of us. If you go to Mbara Main Street, or you go to the Central Market in Mbara, there is a point where you reach and every shop in that section is selling stationery. Every shop is a hardware shop. Every shop is probably selling the normal grain, beans, and all the other dry ration. But what is it about a particular shop that attracts you to go to it and purchase from them as opposed to going to the next shop? That's where the issue of personal branding comes in. That's why when I chose to go back to TV, I said, I will wear a bow tie. Because all news anchors I know, all TV personalities and presenters that I see are wearing neckties. They're wearing black jackets and white shirts. So you are in the crowd, all of you looking like a corner in your local dialect. So you are black jackets, white shirts, and nothing else. But for the most part, you want to get viewership. You want people to listen to you. You want people to attend to you. You want people to recognize you for who you are, not to put you in the crowd of saying, those are news anchors. So what do? You look for something that is particularly peculiar to yourself. And I chose the bow tie. And I can say that more than 60% of my success as a news anchor, as a TV presenter, was as a result of not so much about my intelligence on the program, but so much about how I look like on the program. Because then you are attending to people, they are not paying attention, people are just looking at the screen. In fact, for the most part, some of them are deaf, but they know that when the time comes at 7 a.m. in the morning on MTV, there is this guy with spectacles wearing a bow tie that will show up on the screen. That distinguishes you from the guy seated next to you. I always used to joke that for what I may lack in intelligence, I compensate in how I look. So we say, what you may lack in substance, you compensate in form. Now imagine you don't have much substance. You're also not looking particularly very different from everyone else. So at the end of the day, you will be just one of those items that people just look at and move away. To bring back the example of Coca-Cola, it could have been any other carbonated cola drink, in any bottle that anyone can pick up from any shelf. But they are deliberate in choosing their bottle design and make it go viral. So that people was saying, they may have that formula that is known by 7 people in the world at any given time. But at the end of the day, it is not so much the formula that distinguishes them from the rest of the people, but it is just how they look like. And that's the issue of personal branding. That begs the questions all of us listening to us. What are you known for in terms of outlook, in terms of personal look and feel? Are you known as the guy that dresses clumsily at events, even when you should be dressing appropriately smart? And personal branding doesn't have to be on the extreme side of good. No, you can actually choose to say, for me, I will always underdress. And this is not to take a shot at Professor Barino, but I know that when I close my eyes and I hear the name Professor Barino, I begin to see him in an Under Armour cape, khaki trousers, and most likely with a t-shirt or a shirt that is not tucked in, whether it's a Monday or a weekend. Professor Barino, you tell me if I am wrong, but I suspect that's how you're dressed. And when you really want to be very formal in that outlook, you will add on a blazer jacket. That's you. I have seen you on a plane. I've seen you in class. I have seen you at meetings. And for the most part, even when the cape is not on, it is within arm's reach. That's how you have chosen to brand yourself. That for me, as Waswa Barino, I will have an Under Armour cape within arm's reach. Whatever it is that you're hiding from your head, only you knows. But that is how you have chosen to brand yourself. You have chosen not to wear Italian suits and be seen in neckties of gargantuan prices and all that. You have chosen to be a normal guy just next door, wearing your nice chinos and a shirt that's not tucked in, or a t-shirt. And there you are. Because for you, you believe that what you may lack in form in terms of outlook, you have it in substance. That you may show up and be picked up from a crowd dressed shabbily, when I'm putting that in inverted commas as people may want to indicate. But when you begin to present, then people will realize, oh, we're actually listening to a colossus in the area of business administration, in the area of marketing, in the area of education. Now, as I come closer to the conclusion of the presentation today, over the years, as a communications practitioner, as a communications strategist, my role has been largely to create an identity for the organization I work for. So for the most part, if I am head of public and corporate affairs in an organization, the first thing you want to look at is, what does our brand manual say? What does our brand and identity manual talk to in terms of our color pantones, in terms of the application of our brand and everything in between? Because that's the identity that you have. Now, when you see a certain yellow pantone, quickly you will associate it with a certain political party or a certain telecom organization. The same way as if you see a certain red pantone, it can either go to a political party somewhere in this country or a telecommunications company, again, in the same country. That is personal branding for a business. But as an individual, in the years gone by, we knew that serious statesmen had their haircut with a line cutting through from the forehead. That distinguished them as intelligent and all-knowing and distinguished. It was personal branding. So when COVID struck, for example, I got an idea, and I've shared it on some forums organized by Makerere University Business School. As I was looking around to find a razor blade during COVID, because supermarkets had been closed, and for many years I had accustomed myself to shopping at supermarkets, like every middle-class kind of person who doesn't really have the time is running almost a 24-hour shift. The only time you have is to branch off by capital shoppers near MUBS at Makawa, get yourself the week's groceries or the month's groceries, which include the personal items like, razor blades, toilet paper, shavers, and the like. But now here we're in a project, and all shops are closed that are of the size of capital shoppers. So we were relegated to going to Obuduka Wokucharo, as the president referred to them when he was closing the mainstream shops, and said, Modek Obuduka Wokucharo and get things there. So when I went to my local shop, one, you stand at the doorway, then there's this burglar proofing in front of you. The shopkeeper is behind a pile of a sack of rice, posho, and the like. And you have to keep pointing at what you want. Then there are 6 brands of Bujita, so you don't even know, but you know the one you want. You possibly didn't even know the name until that point where I asked you, no Bujita Mukago, Yagarakariwa. And then you have to say, okay, I want that one Supermax. And then he brings it, then he has to go back to pick change. It was quite a daunting process. And an idea came to me and said, but Simon, why don't you also create some kind of neighborhood shop that people like you can buy from? Give them a semblance of a supermarket. Create a 2-aisle akaduka kokuchar that mimics the experience of a supermarket. Gladly, there was a building that was getting finished by the roadside, about 5 minutes walk from my house, that I saw also during my walks in COVID, because you had all the time to yourself and you're moving around aimlessly. So I spoke to the landlord and said, yeah, you can come and take up one of these places. I didn't have much of tenancy coming through. There is a saloon in the other Muriango. There is a car boutique in the next one. The other one is a pharmacy. So if you're bringing in a car shop, why not? Now the question was, am I just going to create any other shop like the ones that are around the village? No. My idea was to create one that looked like a supermarket, but it must have a name, it must have an identity, it must have something that will distinguish it beyond just the products you're selling or the outlook of the shop. I don't know how that name came to my mind, but I said, why don't you just call it Akaduka? After all, it's a little shop in the neighborhood. So in Nyankore, you call it Akaduka. The Baganda will say Akaduka, and others in the way they pronounce it differently. But at the end of the day, it was Akaduka. And I went out of my way to invest more in branding Akaduka and creating a big signage with the word Akaduka grocery than I had planned to buy, for example, the shelves inside Akaduka itself. Because for me, the look and feel was going to be more important than what I was selling. I went out of my way to ensure that the buveras in which I'll be putting customers' groceries after they have bought are branded as Akaduka. I went out to say I will not even use plastic buveras because I have this thing about environmental conservation and the like. So I went and looked for somebody that can make me paper bags, and we branded them Akaduka. Now, the success that Akaduka has had over the last 2 years, and now we've changed our tagline because it's Akaduka grocery. Now our tagline is Akaduka, open since lockdown. Just to show that while everyone was locking down, while the world was slowing, while economies were failing, for us at Akaduka, we were beginning something novel that we believed in, and we were only riding on the premise of branding and not anything else. We're not selling anything spectacular, not selling anything peculiar. We're selling everyday things that you require in your home. Sanitary towels for the girls, cold drinks for the men and daddies, an egg here, crisp there for the children, some roiko for the mamas who are going to cook, and all the other ingredients for frying a good meal, some toothbrushes for those who are going to a nearby lodge or even home need to change toothbrushes, and everything in between. But our tagline was Akaduka, the little shop. Now, first there was an oxymoron around it. On the village, it was a supermarket, so to say, because the village was used to this little Kanyankode's shop around the corner. That was a crammed up environment where you stand outside with a burglar proofing before you and you order for what you want by pointing at it. Here I was creating a room where you can walk in, walk around shelves, and pick what you want, put it in a shopping basket, go to the counter, and have someone put it into the system. They give you a receipt as you pay. To the villagers, a supermarket. In fact, they call it a supermarket. But the name was Akaduka. It's supposed to be a small shop. So there was something contradictory around it that was a bit controversial, and people loved it. Say, hey, so there was, that kind of debate of why the name, how the name, what is it that it intends to achieve. So you could recognize the fact that people get curious around your brand. Why does this guy wear a bow tie and maybe suspenders as opposed to a belt? Why does he choose to look this way? In fact, some people even choose to change their accent to sound a certain way because they believe that in sounding that way, they distinguish themselves from others. Because I know some of you, when you're listening to Cruise FM or other Barra-based radio stations, even before someone announces themselves that I am so and so, you're able to say that, it is so and so on the radio, largely because of their accent. So some of this personal branding is a taught skill. It is an acquired skill. It's an acquired disposition. Although some also choose to get one that is natural to them. If you are naturally gifted with a deep voice, that becomes your personal brand. So you make the best out of the fact that you are that way. If you're like me, and as you grow up, you realize that the hair on top of your head is diminishing, you're getting a bald head. There are certain things that you have to do that represent and are part of what a bald-headed person should be like. You know that at events when you show up in a tie and coat and all, and you're bald-headed, people have the impression you are a bit richer than the ordinary folk that just shows up with their hair in an afro. So most likely when you're bald-headed, they will give you a front seat at an event, especially if it's a fundraising event, because they know you have quite some disposable income on you that you want to share. Are you living to that? Are you living to look like who you present yourself to be? And when you've mastered that skill of being what you want people to perceive you to be, now you have hit the point of personal branding. In fact, some people have said it in a more derogatory way, that it's always better to fake it until you make it, as opposed to wallowing in the bottomless abyss of modesty. No, me, people know me, I'm okay, because there are people who show up and until they are introduced, you can't even make the head or tail of them. We used to joke many years ago when Basajawara was still a small man, pale, but very rich in terms of name. At least a man who can show up at an event, you give him a backseat, and then when they mention his name, you realize, oh my goodness, this is Basajawara, bring him to the front. So people always looked out for this guy that doesn't look usual. We have to be sure that we don't give this unusual person a backseat. He could be Basajawara. So personal branding is important. I had Professor Warinho talk about Gordon Wavamulo, who an incredible gentleman that took a gamble on employing me over 22 years ago. He didn't know me, of course, but I showed up and I was working for one of his outfits. I tried to study him as an individual. Yes, he had the franchise for Mercedes-Benz. And that gave him, of course, the leeway to drive nothing but a Mercedes-Benz. Because of the Mercedes-Benz he drove, I grew up saying, when I grow up, when I have my car, it must be a Mercedes-Benz. Of course, your first car, you would be very lucky if it's a Mercedes-Benz. So even when my first car was another brand, I never felt fulfilled until I sat behind the wheel of a Mercedes-Benz. And interestingly, talk about Mercedes-Benz. A Mercedes-Benz is actually one of the cheapest cars. In terms of a sedan, if you get an E-Class, for example, even its cost could be cheaper than an Mark X or a Premium of the latest version. But because it's a Mercedes-Benz, people will show a lot of more respect to you on the road and where you park than they would of someone driving any other brand that may be more expensive. Professor Balunyo has Prado VX, if he still drives that one, at least I've seen him in one, is much more expensive than a Mercedes ML 4MATIC Blue Tech. But believe you me, when I show up in my 4MATIC Blue Tech, somehow guards at the parking lot may want to give me preferential treatment and give me a more prime parking slot than someone that has showed up in a Toyota Prado. That's the power of brands. May not be more expensive, but it's a brand that has distinguished itself over the years. So as I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, I leave it to you as a challenge. When all has been said and done, what will you be remembered to have looked like? Forget about what you say. Nobody remembered. I can tell you for what I have said in this conversation, less people will remember the substance of what I have said, as opposed to those who remember how I said it. And yes, if my video was on, most of you would remember how I looked like, as opposed to what exactly I said. So I leave it to you. As an individual, what are you known for? What will you be remembered for? As a business, what is it about you that makes you stand out of the crowd, that distinguishes you from other people doing exactly the same thing, perhaps even in a better way? So branding is about creating a perception around yourself. It's about creating a look and feel around yourself that distinguishes you. You may not be the most intelligent guy in the room, but the moment you show up wearing thicker specs than everyone, people will think, Onasunyenye Vitabo is intelligent. Professor Body, I've never seen him wearing specs full time. But me, when I wear my specs, I have my bald head and I have my bow tie on. And if I want to even make it more surreal, is to have a walking stick. People will think I am more of the professor than him, because it's a creation of brand around you, a perception that you create. So as we start our day, as we start our week, find it important to ask yourself what it is about you that will distinguish you from the next guy. Work on it, perfect it, even if it means taking some coaching lessons around it. You can fake it until you make it, and that is what will distinguish you, and that's what will make it to what they will refer to as your personal brand. I'm sorry if I'm not stopped from talking. I could talk until the sun sets. So at this particular time, can I forget and say, Professor Mumza, thank you very much for inviting me to have this conversation with your distinguished group of people that is on the call that I see in their name and brand, and I'm happy to have been part of this conversation. At this point, I will entertain some questions or comments, as would be the only way I feel I possibly made an impact to those I've spoken to. Thank you.
Wow, that is a very, very, very wonderful presentation this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to give a loud of applause to Mr. Simon Kasyate for that practical experience, just from the industrial base, from the real situation that we live in. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It is at this time that I would like to also give a challenge to academicians to understand from Simon Kasyate's presentation. You can see how he is really telling us that how you look, how you appear, it means a lot, meaning that a brand, a logo, the brand itself, what goes along with it, what makes it to be known in the public, what makes people to be known, it's so paramount. I think this morning we are really learning a lot. Allow me at this time, once again, to recognize the following persons. I do recognize everyone who has participated in this particular session this morning, but I also want to pick out the individuals of high caliber. I know everyone is of high caliber really for having really woken up this morning and attended this session, but allow me to recognize Dr. Nkuruziza Gideon, Professor Laura, and my colleagues, the MUBS alumni, members from Nairobi, led by none other than Icharia Wambeire, who are on the call. Thank you so much, really, for participating in this session, Icharia. And allow me also recognize the head of career, Maureen Tuonjere, and also Dr. Sam Kazimwe. Thank you so much for your perseverance and continuing to participate always in these morning sessions of Tuesday from Makerere University Business School. We really appreciate and we don't take it for granted. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to go to another item on our agenda. That is a Q&A session. And at this particular time, it will be guided by Diaz Kadugara from the questions that have been really posed and other supplements. Most of the time, these are supplements for us to be able to understand business resilience and how really you go along, especially in this, you've heard of Mubende, Kasana, such kind of disruptions that happen. The businesses need to adapt and see how they respond to such kind of disruptions and go quickly over them and respond to customers' requests and other needs. Mr. Kadugara Diaz, over to you so that we go through the Q&A session.
Hopefully I'm audible enough. Doctor, can you hear me?
Very much, very much.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right, thank you so much, our host. We have about 5 minutes to the top of the hour, and I'm sure we are going to utilize these 5 minutes in our Q&A. But to you, our guest speaker, wow, it was so quite amazing. May God richly bless you so much. And all of you, our dear participants. I am seeing so many comments here. Thank you so much, Simon, for this wonderful presentation. The questions, yes, they are there. All these are compliments. There is a question. In case a role model inspires me to become a lead personal brand, am I being authentic or not? That's one question. The second question is somebody was asking whether we have BTTM, but it has been answered. Whether we are teaching travel and tourism weekend program, I think the director, you also have to clarify on that. Rogers is asking, we had one teacher in our secondary school who had one white shirt. And in every class would be putting on this shirt. As students, we ended up calling him Shirt One. Was this personal branding as well? If so, was it positive or negative? Wow, it's a very good question. Members, feel free to put up your electronic hand. I will give you an opportunity to ask your question in these few remaining minutes. This one is, recently, this is Daniel, I bought a damaged jean, and whenever I step out, my friends quite surprised. Well, I think my friends were quite surprised. I have been thinking of just buying many of them. They seem to make me look a little different. Am I a realtor? Realtor from the word real, really, realtor. What would you advise me, our presenter? Then probably the last question as of now. I am seeing Professor Balunywa here is telling you, Simon, that is now putting on blue. Simon, I am now wearing blue. and black jeans after 30 years of suits. I dumped the khaki trousers. Wow, wow. Okay, I think that is also personal branding, but it's for you, Simon, to note. Probably before I hand over this mic to you, Simon, if you can utilize 2 minutes or just 1 minute in our local dialect, because we have our communities here in Nyabjora, in the Central Market, we have our traders here in Koranoria, and they would wish to see how they can improve on their businesses using personal branding in our really Nyankore. Just 1 minute now that we are in this region. Thank you so much.
Sebo bari munonga ngata kagamba gohora Nyankore rukiga Zoom meeting. So iri izoba cyabe cy'umutaho no kureba uwanjeza gamwa n'abantu bawa bambara Nyankore rwanda rushiga turungi munonga. I speak better English than I speak of my local dialect. Kunganiza kugeza kureba Nyankore kureba ningama nkarwegera aho mbarira kashomera myaka na ntare. It was the deliberate move by my parents to take me there so that I am able to master the local dialect. So ko gamba katari nkakakora n'oriya ninkamanyaho omunoza warga harwe noza kumuri makenke kora n'oriya njimanya nyaptiyobora ninjimanya ndakishireyo aho hona nimpetegeza nda Central Market enkuru etari agency yibayombekire nayo ninjimanya mwene nkabashubuzi narshi abantu abakora business so muri mbara n'ibicweke byeto mbara nkoko nabagambira mu rujungu buri yomwe nabayine duka erikuza ekiburi omwe arikugusa nkoko twabere tugine hotel neguza chai na nemigati narshi oyine roji nehereza oburaro na namizi garukosi konkatiwe roje yawe neza kuba hweta tukire ya nanka narshi hotel yawe neza kutasikita abantu tukire yabaguma abo mwena numuguze byo kuri mwena mwine bitoke byigire mwine nyama itasikire kunga n'iki cyoyine ekikusikiriza abantu kwijo wawe ecyabandi batine hata huntu kwija personal branding ni izina lyawe nguko kuri ubutare babweta haro kabagarame bushenyi hatwo kura kabagarame. Now how do I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we do.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Hello.
Yes.
Simon,
hello.
Go ahead. We can hear you loud and clear.
Very good. Sorry, I had lost my connectivity in terms of earpieces. So, no hurobotare bwina mazina. Ohura kabagarame. Hatko kura kabagarame ohura izine yo kabagarame izina. Nasho ohura kanda kazene buketa bagaho. Narsh ntuzo mucyananga. Nash twaza mwanjari. So izina lya katari nduskira kura waina ngozi yo harebe. Nothing spectacularly different at that market, but the name and what people have to say about it. Narish umanyiti araka arichikomera cha nyama yenje. Omuchikomera cha nyama yenje ekikira yo abantu kutwara y'abantu ninga kuza kureba. Nazabura hand what you call pancakes. So buri kimwe kibashine kinde kikusigiza abagenzi babo. Something that distinguishes you from the rest. Nkoko mwahurire Professor Boringa has now informed me he has dumped chinos. I hope to come and collect you a bunch of chinos because I intend now to start wearing more chinos than suits. Now he's going to black and blue jeans. That's one way of distinguishing himself. Maybe there's something about his old self that he wants to shed away. Maybe he was looking older and less sophisticated. Now he wants to look young and hippie, hence the jeans. That's why Daniel says, I went and bought damaged jeans. I was doing some consultancy work with KCCA and I didn't realize it's very essentially government. So me, I know how to dress down on Fridays. So the first Friday I was here, indeed, I put on my damaged jeans and came to work knowing it's a Friday, come on, be light and look good. And as soon as I got to the office, a message came through that we are supposed to go to the Prime Minister's office for a meeting. Now imagine our Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Bonabanje, and myself in damaged jeans. I had to quickly organize myself, run to Uganda House, get a proper pair of trousers and a blazer and show up at the meeting. And indeed, had I not done that, I would have looked so out of place. But again, I could have also stood out of the crowd. They would have said, that one, and that's why someone asked in their question, is it positive or negative branding when they talked about their teacher that had that one white shirt? I may wish to disappoint you that it may not even have been one white shirt. There could have been several of them, but they were all white. My wife keeps teasing me, Simon, when you were buying khaki trousers, why do you buy them the same color? Like, I can't tell the difference between them. And guess what? I know all my white shirts by name. When I wear, because for me, Monday to Thursday, you will not find me in any other shirt color. It's a white shirt. Is it one? No. I have over 40 white shirts. But people, I think, may imagine my office, they think I have one white shirt. But I believe that white for me does it for me. Because on white, you can wear any color of bow tie, any print, as long as you have a bold jacket. Is it one white shirt? No. But it's a white shirt anyway. That's what I want to be known, that Monday, Thursday, I wear a white shirt. Then on Friday, I can dress down to a pinstriped shirt or a flowery shirt or whatever it is. So yes, this man you called Shirt One, that was how he distinguished himself from all the other teachers who wore Kaunda suits, who wore Badoadoa, who wore t-shirts, whatever it was. For him, he will have that. I have my friend, I'm not trying to mention his name, Kwame Ejalo, a distinguished insurance guy. He's a chairperson of the board at Uganda Electricity Transmission Company Limited. He is an international acclaimed business person. He's the honorary consul of Ghana to Uganda. His father was the minister at Tekerejaru. But I know that I can hazard a guess that Monday to Friday, I will meet Kwame wearing gray trousers. And he has one shade of gray. Kwame drives a Range Rover. His wife, I think, a Volkswagen. He lives by this lakeside. He has it all. But why does Kwame wear one type of trouser, one color of trousers? That's his personal branding. And I don't want to believe that it is one trouser. No. It is several trousers, but of the same shade and of the same make. That is how he prefers to brand himself. What have you branded yourself to look like? And that's what I leave to you. Now, branding, as I conclude, comes down to also personal preference. There is something that you feel comfortable in. If you've noticed, President Museveni's way of dressing has changed. He wears that white shirt that he doesn't tuck in, that well-pressed pair of trousers, and open shoes, or maybe closed shoes. But let's just look at the trouser and shirt. And then, of course, you know, for the longest time, since I think 2001, even his campaign is clear, vote the man in a hat. I will tell you that many people go to the polling station happy candidate Bobby Wine or candidate Kizza Besigye, but they may get to the ballot paper and they cannot identify who is Bobby Wine. Because the Bobby Wine they know had dreadlocks. The one they are seeing here has a haircut, so they can't tell who he is. He may as well be Abed Wanika. There is 9 people on the ballot paper. But one thing is for sure, there is the man in a hat. And President Museveni has mastered the art. He's either the first or the last. You will never see him in the middle of a ballot paper. No. Go back and check. He knows how to ensure that he looks at the other candidates and he'll say, my name is Yoweri, meaning unless you are Zedechia, you cannot come before, you cannot come after him on a ballot paper. So you'll make sure he's the last or he's the first. So when you get a ballot paper, you don't have to struggle through 9 faces that you possibly cannot distinguish. You go for the man in a hat, but also in a conspicuous position where it becomes easier for you to make your tick. Or better still, you can even make a cross, but you know, with voting, the mark you make, it's a mark, not the kind of mark. So that kind of positioning is what speaks to that personal branding. So as I conclude, I also want to pay special tribute to those who are listening to us from Nairobi. It's interesting to know that I'm speaking to you from the same place. I am somewhere away in Lavington, but happy to connect to the rest of the world because of how technology has made it easy for people to connect wherever they are.
Thank you. Thank you. Dias Kadugara, anything over there?
Doctor, I think in the interest of time, I may read only one question and then one comment, and probably we close this session.
Yes, yes.
One question is, how do you describe character in personal branding? That is the only question. I can see the rest. We shall forward them to you and you answer them. Then one comment, I want to thank everyone. It was a massive, epic, and very impressive. When shall we have another one like this? I think, moderator, you can handle that question. And then I've seen a comment here from our chief mentor, and he is saying, Simon, I have now, this is Professor Waswa Balunywa, I have now dedicated my life to enabling students to succeed. I must associate with them. But
Wow.
I know a man in a better suit receives a better reception. So when the occasion for the suit emerges, I wear one. That is our mentor. I think back to you, Simon, and back to you, our moderator. Thank you so much, everyone.
Again, as I conclude, really in the interest of time, like you rightly said, personal branding also speaks largely to one's character. So when you look at the character, and I'm going to use people that we know that are around us, and I would use Professor Barinho. You'll forgive me for picking on you all the time, but I would want to use someone that everyone can associate with. His personal character of wanting to be in the face of his students in the way he wants them to associate with him. That's what has distinguished him from other principals of educational institutions. Vice chancellors and others create a certain air and aura around them that makes them so invisible and out of reach. Yet for Professor Balume, he's saying, for me, I want to be like you, be with you, and be able to solve your problems by associating with you, because that way it allows you to trust me because I'm dressed in jeans like you. I'm wearing an Under Armour cape just like you. Okay, many students can't afford Under Armour, but yes, they're wearing, a baseball cap. So personal character is exuded in how you appear. It is something around someone's persona. And someone once said, and I think that was Michelle Obama, she said, power does not change people. Power, in fact, exposes people for what they truly are. So it doesn't matter that Professor Barunywa is the principal of MUBS. That power has not changed him to be what he is. No, if anything, it is that power that he is open person, one that's open. Yes, he is the power that the principal is around, so there are a few picadillos you're not going to commit while he's there. But he actually gave us a better sense of feeling and belonging in a classroom than some of his lesser decorated tutors. Many of them came in class with an exaggerated sense of self-worth, feeling that they are so important. Then, who would be tied if you never called one of them doctor? But this guy came in and he was normal and free and flamboyant. That's why he is who he is. So yes, you have to brand yourself in a manner that speaks to who you intrinsically are. But if you are not that you want to be it, I'll go back to what I told you earlier. Fake it until you make it. If you don't make it, then you have failed at it. And then you know that so, folks, I think it's been a pleasure having this conversation with you. We're talking about names of markets. I've seen a comment coming in here from Maureen. I don't want to mention, but it's there in the open comments. You can see the kind of names that people give markets. It's interesting, but yes, people get interested in names of places and they want to go there. Imagine if someone had a bar, they called it El Nino Bar or El Nino Lodge.
Sure.
You imagine like nobody is going to call their restaurant Ebola Red. It has a negative connotation to it.
Okay.
But you've seen of restaurants called Las Vegas. It means what happens there stays there, creating a perception and so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you
very much.
so much, Mr. Simon. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation and actually the answers to the posed questions. I think they are not questions, they are trying really to understand more, which you have really done thoroughly. We appreciate, and I think next time we really invite you. People are really eager to see you once again. And before I go to another item, which is the last, I would like to remind our members who are on this call that the next Tuesday, we shall have another interesting presentation where the topic will be strategizing for business sustainability across the conflict spectrum, and the case will be East Africa. I repeat, strategizing for business sustainability across the conflict spectrum, and the case will be East African community. Members, I really invite you in advance to be there and listen to see how we can really sustain a business across the conflict spectrum. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me this time, because in the interest of time, to request Dr. Nkote, if at all he's still online on call, and then he gives us a closing remark. Over to you, Dr. Nkote, if it is possible, if it's not an inconvenience. Hello. Are we still together? Hello.
Yes, please. We are together. You are welcome.
Am I speaking to Dr. Nkote? Hello.
I think Dr. Nkote is off call.
Okay. Can I now again request Professor Kisimire to give a closing remark so that we call it really a day? It has been a wonderful day.
Thank you, Dr. Benon, once again. I must say that this is just so amazing. I am really humbled and excited by the talks of my OB, Simon Kasyate. You know, I happen to have met Simon Kasyate way back in 1997 in direct school. But I can assure you, by and large, this gentleman started branding himself way back in those days. Just a brief, when I came in senior one, we found this gentleman who had organized a mock debate in his bow tie. And this was the same gentleman that I see today. Simon Kasyate, thank you for keeping your brand. Thank you for building your brand. The you I saw then is the you that I'm seeing now. And I'm very sure that it is the same you that we shall see in the future. So keeping a brand is something you have talked about. It is something we need to invest in, we need to look at as we are growing, as we are building our businesses, as we are focusing on business resilience. I was amused by the way you tapped in our dear principal, and he was able to tell you that this time around he has changed. I want to thank everyone who has been on call, people from and around the country and outside the country. Thank you so much for listening in. Thank you so much, our dear principal, for keeping with us as our mentor, as our principal, but most importantly, for saving that most precious time of yours to be with us. To the host, Benon.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Doctor, for inviting and identifying the best people they are to come and present to us. There wouldn't have been any other person better than Simon Kasyate to give the best presentation of this morning. I am really glad, and on behalf of the Makerere University Business School, Mbarara Regional Campus, we are so humbled and happy to be with such wonderful people. Ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of time, allow me to stop here and wish you all the best as we wait for the next engagement next week on Tuesday. Thank you and have a blessed day.
Same to you. Thank you so much, Prof. And have a wonderful week, ladies and gentlemen. Bye. And thank you once again, Simon Kasyate.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye to you all. Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone. I really enjoyed it. Very good week ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a lovely day, please.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you so much, Kasyate, and everyone that was presenting. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.